Hello and welcome back to the Ducoscopy Studios here in Geneva. Joining me today is Valentin Matillon to discuss the impact of performance management. So welcome back, Valentin.
Thank you very much for having me again, Jessica.
So today we're discussing the impact of performance management on company governance and strategies. So what's your opinion on this?
Well, performance management is very often seen as a tool or a process, a means to an end, which is actually true, but you can take it at a higher level and look at it really as a way for companies' governance to integrate where they really want to lead the performance on the short term, but also in the middle term. So performance management then becomes really a thought process that you integrate into the way you do your strategy, the way you do your budgeting, and also the way then you're going to monitor and operate and measure the performance actions that you drive throughout the year. So for me, it's really trying to move from performance management seen as a tactical element of the way the company is thinking of to a more strategic ways that is being thought by the executive committee in particular, or that is also presented to the board on a regular basis, just to make sure that performance management drive the thinking process and the decision making of the stakeholders at the highest level of the company, but that there's also a governance behind it that enables to mobilize the entire organization behind it and making sure that every level of the organization people are really focusing on performance management in their day-to-day work. So which pretty much means having really factual and measurable plans of actions that can be laid out, implemented and measured on an ongoing basis, such that performance management through the pyramid of the organization is already being thought through and is always on the agenda.
So in your opinion, should performance management always be on the agenda of executive committees?
Well, I think it's, maybe already answered the question too quickly, but yeah, definitely I think performance management for me needs to be always on the agenda. I think it tends to be the case into large corporations anyway today. It's becoming a bit more, also a more fashionable topic because ultimately performance management has always been there. People used to call it that way, but a lot of companies have already adopted it into their working style. But it's more like something more conscious that companies are using because they're also more structured methodologies, approaches, and solutions to implement performance management. So for large multinationals, it's been on the map for a long time. For SMBs, I think it's really an area where they should be thinking more of it in terms of how they can use it in a practical sense. Small business needs to be and are faster, in general, nimbler, and have more operational needs, but it doesn't mean that performance management doesn't apply to them. And it's really for them to think about how they want to put that in the structure of their governance, step back and take the time to think with their executive governance bodies to define what really is their objective in terms of enhancing the performance of the companies, selecting a few areas for improvements and really dedicating specific programs and actions to make a difference. So definitely needs to be on the agenda, whatever is the size of the company.
And how influential is performance management, and how can performance management influence strategies?
I think strategies always have an element of performance management in them, but normally performance management and strategies could be seen as very opposite, because strategy is really looking at the very high level objectives of the companies, not necessarily looking at how you're going to implement them. But efficient strategies don't only look at the vision and the end goal, but they also look at how it's going to be workable and implementable. And that's where you need to have a link between the strategy and performance management, or there needs to be a thought process to be already able to make the link between how you think your strategy and how you're going to implement that. And I think successful companies, or those who have not only that in mind in terms of having that on the agenda, but also have the right people and have at least a few capable experts in the company that can translate strategy into driving performance by designing, implementing, and steering action plans to enhance the performance. So yeah, ultimately strategy and performance management are, to me, very much linked.
Absolutely. Well, Valentin, thank you so much for coming in once again and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Once again, that's all from myself and Valentin, but for all the latest Ducoscopy updates and exclusive interviews, keep clicking back.